I have two scenarios I'd like you to think about this morning. The first is about St. Thomas Aquinas. St. Thomas Aquinas lived in the 13th century. And it was during this time that many of, the Arab philosophers and all the things that were lost during the Dark Ages were rediscovered. And there was a frenzy of activity to relearn all this stuff. Thomas Aquinas came basically at the high end of it, the high Middle Ages. And his teaching for us is still used today in seminaries. His way of looking at the world. He wrote many books. I have a set of books at home. It's just one work. It's his Summa Theologica. It's 25 volumes. Thick book, small print. And that's only one. One day he was having Mass, and during Mass he had the beatific vision. After Mass, they asked him, what went wrong? What happened? And he said, I had a vision of God. I'm going to go pray. And one young man basically said, but what about your works that you've been working on? And he replied, all these things that I wrote, all of this it's as straw to be walked on, to be thrown away. Nothing compares with what I experienced. The second deals with Adam and Eve. When you think of Adam and Eve, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Eating the apple, right? And because of that, God made them leave the Garden of Eden. It might seem as punishment, and on one level it is, but let's look at it from a different perspective. What if, instead of kicking them out of the garden as a punishment, God asked them to leave because of love? In the garden, they had no perspective of life. They didn't have to worry about food, clothing, shelter, the weather, work, nothing. And it's because of those things that they really could not have a deep relationship with the Lord. So in love, God asked them to leave, where they would have to discover themselves. They would have to feel various emotions. They would have to work with other people. And thus they would learn how to have a relationship. And when they learned how to have a relationship, they can learn how to be with God. Both scenarios, God is in the very midst of who they are and what's going on. God is the one who is the center, who moves humanity so that humanity can become closer to Him. In the readings today, it's talking about things as greed, vanity, and the like. On the surface, you might hear, you shouldn't have money. You shouldn't have, a good esteem of yourself, because those things will run away. They will dissolve. And on one level, that's true. How do we define fulfillment or success? We might define it because of the job that we have. I make a lot of money, therefore I'm successful. I have a large family, I'm successful. I have a wife, I have a husband of many years, I'm successful. I've been ordained 20 years, I'm not successful. No, we define things by our lives here on earth. And Koheleth from Ecclesiastes today is saying, wait a minute, those things are vain. I claim myself to be a scholar. You claim yourself to be something else. Those aren't number one. God is number one. You claim to have money, or you claim to be poor. I've seen rich people and I've seen poor people, both happy and sad. You claim to have, a long marriage. What is it that kept that marriage together, ultimately? You could be poor and still be happy. These things on earth mean nothing. Like St. Thomas said, they are as straw. What truly is important is having God in the midst of all that. Not as secondary, not as tertiary, but primary. I was reading and, doing my homework, and the one story was, you never see in a funeral procession the lead car, the hearse, and a U-Haul. We can't take those things with us because they come from earth. But the thing that you can take with you to everlasting life is God's love, because that's where it starts and that's where it ends. Think about St. Thomas. Think about Adam and Eve. St. Thomas thought he had everything. He discovered it was nothing. Adam and Eve had nothing. And they discovered only through God could they have everything.